never thought the break room door slamming would be the last normal sound I'd hear at work. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. But that morning, it wasn't coffee or charts or my patients that occupied my mind. It was the way Marcus had kissed me goodbye. Like a stranger. Like a man who already had a plan. My name is Elena Vale. RN for nearly 11 years, married for 8. I was the nurse everyone called when things went wrong. Calm, focused, always one step ahead. And I loved Marcus. I loved him before the degrees, before the title. Back when he used to pick me up after my double shifts and rub the tension out of my shoulders. Back when he still saw me. We worked at the same hospital, Brookshire Memorial. He was a rising star in cardiology. I was in trauma. Different departments, different rhythms. But for years we worked as a team. Until the morning I opened the narcotics cabinet. And saw the count was off. Froze. The drawer for midazolam, used for conscious sedation, was 2 vials short. I double-checked the log. My name wasn't anywhere on the recent entries. But Marcus's was. I didn't jump to conclusions. Med counts could be messy. Late charting, emergency overrides, human error. Still it felt wrong. I left a discreet note with the pharmacist, Caleb, asking him to review the logs. I wish I hadn't. 2 days later, the hospital descended like a storm. I was pulled from a trauma code mid-procedure. They told me to go with HR. No explanation. No chance to finish the chart. No time to grab my things. In that sterile office, beneath buzzing fluorescent lights, a compliance officer named Jordan Harper read from a printed report. There's been a discrepancy in controlled substances tied to your login credentials, Nurse Vale. We've found irregularities in the medication inventory, specifically sedatives, accessed using your badge. My badge. I stared at him. I haven't touched those drawers in days. You can check the cameras. We did, he said too fast. And that's when it hit me. They'd already made up their minds. Later that afternoon, Marcus walked into our apartment like nothing had happened. I was still on the edge of the couch, shaking. They suspended me, I whispered. He blinked. Why? Because someone accessed the narcotics cabinet with my badge. Someone signed out sedatives I never touched. Marcus, your name was on the log. He paused. Too long. Then, you think I'd do something like that? I don't know what to think anymore. He walked past me, loosened his tie, poured a drink. Well, you better figure it out fast. They'll expect a statement. The days that followed blurred into interviews, accusations, and isolation. I went from Nurse of the Year to persona non grata. Co-workers stopped making eye contact. Patients asked for someone else. HR placed me on administrative leave pending a formal investigation. But the worst part wasn't the suspension. It was Marcus. He never once defended me. Never once showed anger or outrage. If anything, he seemed relieved. Like my fall was convenient. That's when I began to suspect the truth. Marcus had set me up. I started digging quietly. Using my access while it still worked, I looked at the security logs. They confirmed what I feared. The cabinet had been accessed under my badge during a time when I was off the floor. But someone had to swipe the card. My badge was in my locker that day until I realized. My locker wasn't locked. I confronted him the next night. I know what you did, I said. He tilted his head. You've always been dramatic. You used my badge. You signed out the vials. Can you prove that? Silence. He smiled. Didn't think so. The board moved quickly. Within 2 weeks, I was formally charged with misconduct. No one mentioned Marcus. No one even questioned how it happened. They wanted a scapegoat, and he gave them one. And then the final blow came. Caleb, the pharmacist I trusted, testified at the internal hearing that he'd noticed my name on flagged logs more than once, that I had appeared rushed and nervous on the floor. I wanted to scream, to tear the lie apart. But I couldn't fight it, not with nothing but my gut. So they revoked my credentials. Not just my position at Brookshire but my license. I lost everything. And Marcus, he was promoted 2 weeks later. I moved out of our apartment that same night, packed everything into my car and drove to my sister's guest room 2 towns away. The silence was suffocating. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My hands ached for the rhythm of nursing, the codes, the meds, the lives I knew how to save. But now no hospital would take me. I applied for grocery store jobs, considered bartending, thought about changing my name. But then one day I got a text from a blocked number. Just said, "You were right. See." The message sat on my screen like a spark on dry kindling. "You were right. I stared at it for hours, unsure if it was a mistake, or a trap, or maybe just a cruel joke. But Caleb was the only C I could think of. The same pharmacist who'd thrown me under the bus in front of the disciplinary board. I replied, "What are you trying to say?" No answer. Not that night. Not the next morning. But then, 3 days later, a package arrived at my sister's house. No name, no return address. Just a small padded envelope containing a USB drive and a single note. I kept copies. I always keep copies. See. I borrowed my sister's laptop and opened the drive. It was filled with timestamped log exports from the hospital's med tracking system, CSV files, auto-generated pharmacy records, door swipe entries, and most importantly video backups. One of the files was labeled, March 12th, Cabinet Cam, non-admin copy. Click. The footage was grainy but clear enough. The cabinet room. 5:32 p.m. The figure entering wasn't me. It was Marcus. I sat there, hand clamped over my mouth as the footage played. He walked into the frame like he belonged there. Wore his white coat. Looked around. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out my ID badge. He swiped it. The green light on the cabinet flashed. He opened the drawer, removed 2 vials, then carefully closed everything. Before leaving, he paused to wipe down the handle with an alcohol pad. I watched it twice just to be sure. The date was correct. The system had logged my credentials, but it was Marcus who used them. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't incompetent. I was framed. I texted Caleb immediately. "Why didn't you show this to the board?" This time he answered, "'Cause I was scared." He threatened to report me for co-signing expired pulls. I did it once months ago when we were low-staffed. I didn't think anyone would notice. But then he used it to blackmail me. Said if I testified against you, he'd make it disappear. Said you were in the way. In the way. Of what? He's been using trial drugs. Off record. On post-op patients without consent. One of them coded last fall. No one looked into it. Your note about the cabinet made him panic. That's when he set it up. I helped without knowing it at first. But then I realized. And I was in too deep. I was shaking. Furious. Relieved. Terrified. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Called a lawyer. Her name was Maria Campos. Short, direct, and ruthless in court. I showed her the files, the logs, the video. "I'll take the case," she said within 5 minutes. "But not just to clear your name. We're going after his license. And the hospitals." The first thing she did was file a petition to the state medical board for review, citing new evidence and unlawful termination. Simultaneously, she filed an injunction to freeze Marcus's clinical trial privileges and requested subpoenas for all Brookshire patient data involving off-label sedatives. Maria moved like lightning. Within 2 weeks, the hospital received a formal notice of investigation. They tried to bury it, tried to claim patient confidentiality and proprietary research protections. But Maria had already filed complaints with the DEA and the State Board of Nursing. Once the drug tracking data came under external audit, things started to unravel fast. Meanwhile, Marcus was busy pretending nothing was wrong. He showed up on the hospital's website in a feature titled Pioneers in Cardiology, held a lecture on sedation risk profiles, smiled like the prince of the fourth floor. But I knew something he didn't. Caleb was cooperating. He'd turned whistleblower, gave a sworn deposition, handed over the originals of everything he'd sent me, plus additional logs, including a private backup of inventory override codes Marcus had forced him to use. The full picture was emerging. Marcus had been running an illegal side trial for over a year, testing sedatives for a biotech company looking to expedite FDA approval. The company paid under the table. Marcus used staff IDs to pull drugs quietly. If a nurse caught on, he silenced them, framed them, just like he did to me. 3 patients had been affected. 1 had died, labeled a complication from underlying heart failure. But Maria secured an autopsy report. It showed an overdose of the exact sedative Marcus had logged under my name. The hospital was now in crisis mode. Brookshire Memorial launched a task force to review procedures. Publicly, they blamed data errors. Internally, they suspended Marcus pending inquiry, but the news had already leaked to the press. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. "Elena, the board wants to meet with you." When I walked back into Brookshire, it wasn't as an employee, but as a woman who had nothing left to lose. I wore the same shoes I'd worn the day they escorted me out. Same coat, same calm expression. But inside I was a firestorm. Marcus was already in the boardroom when I arrived. He didn't look at me, just stared at the long mahogany table, as the board president, Dr. Evelyn Roche, clicked her pen. "We have new evidence that suggests procedural misconduct," she said flatly. "You'll both have a chance to respond." Marcus tried to spin it, said I was bitter, said the footage could have been tampered with, said Caleb had personal issues, called the whole thing a witch hunt. That's when Maria slid the printed logs across the table. "This is a batch tracking record from your hospital's own servers," she said. "The exact batch that was found in the deceased patient system, signed out under Elena Vale's credentials. But the surveillance clearly shows Dr. Vale using her badge." He turned to me. "Tell the board where your badge was that day." "In my locker." "Until I found the combination had been reset." "By whom?" I looked at Marcus. He didn't answer. That night, they adjourned the session with promises to review findings thoroughly. But the truth was already written in the data. All I could do now was wait. Wait for justice. Wait for the storm to hit Marcus as hard as he'd tried to bury me. I didn't sleep the night before the verdict. Not that sleep had come easy for me in months. But that night was different. It wasn't fear that kept me awake. It was the weight of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Oh, the hearing had ended with more than just facts. It ended with silence, from Marcus. And that silence meant more than words ever could. Maria called me just after 9 a.m. "They want you there in person. Bring Caleb too." Brookshire Memorial had never looked so sterile, so careful. The hospital had shut down an entire conference room floor to host the press briefing. Word had spread. An ongoing criminal investigation, a whistleblower, sedative theft, a doctor under fire. Marcus was already seated when I walked in. For the first time he looked nervous, like a man trying to hold his mask in place while it cracked beneath the eyes. Dr. Evelyn Roche stood behind a podium flanked by legal advisors and hospital executives. Her voice was steady, cold. After reviewing electronic records, witness statements, and archived footage, Brookshire Memorial Hospital has concluded that the accusations brought against nurse Elena Vale were made in error and based on falsified evidence. Cameras flashed. I didn't blink. Dr. Roche continued. The evidence further implicates Dr. Marcus Vale in the unauthorized access and administration of controlled substances, as well as failure to report adverse patient outcomes during unofficial research activity. Gasps rippled through the room. But she wasn't done. Effective immediately, Dr. Marcus Vale's medical license is suspended. A formal report has been submitted to the State Medical Board, and the hospital will be cooperating with criminal investigations. I looked at Marcus. He was pale, hands clenched, still not looking at me. Dr. Roche turned to me. Elena Vale's license has been reinstated in full, with the hospital's apology and acknowledgement of professional excellence and integrity. Miss Vale has been invited to return in any capacity she chooses, pending her own decision. That's when I finally exhaled. Later, Maria told me we had a strong case for a civil suit. Wrongful termination, defamation, damages. The hospital, eager to avoid further scandal, offered a confidential settlement, one with a lot of zeros and a personal written apology. But none of that compared to what came next. Caleb called me a week later. There was something he hadn't told me before. There's a second drive, he said. Marcus kept it in his locker, hidden behind the HVAC vent. I only found it after they cleared his stuff. What's on it? Audio recordings. Of you. He wasn't lying. Inside the folder were dozens of files, labeled by date. My voice. Phone calls, break room conversations, even one from our apartment, recorded, it seemed, via his smartwatch. In one, I was asking about a patient who had coded unexpectedly. In another, I was warning him not to delay anesthesia. In one, I begged him not to override a sedative order. And then, one from the night before the cabinet access. Marcus. Just do what I said and she'll fold. She's too careful. She'll try to clear her name, but she won't be able to prove a thing. She's a liability now. I'm done cleaning up her moral messes. Unknown male voice. So you're really gonna let her go down for it? Marcus. She'll bounce back. Maybe not here. But she's always been better with victims than power. The blood drained from my face. He hadn't just framed me. He planned it. He thought I was disposable. He thought my conscience was a weakness. That recording became part of the criminal investigation. The biotech company he'd been working with denied involvement, but one of its reps was later indicted for failing to report an unlicensed trial under their name. Marcus was arrested on multiple counts: falsifying medical records, tampering with evidence, illegal drug trials, and obstruction. His court date was set for 3 months later. And for the first time in years, I didn't look back. I didn't return to Brookshire, not because I was angry, but because I was done being the collateral damage in someone else's power games. Instead, I took the settlement and started over. I moved north. Quiet town. Small clinic. No politics. Just patience. Just healing. But the story didn't stay buried. A medical podcast picked it up. Then a documentary team. People wanted to know how a nurse got framed by her husband, and how she cleared her name. I didn't do it for the exposure. I did it for the nurses still working in the shadows of powerful men. For the women dismissed as too emotional when they sound the alarm. For every staff member afraid to speak up because of who might retaliate. And sometimes late at night I think about the cabinet. How one badge swipe nearly destroyed my life. And how the man who took everything from me with a lie lost everything when the truth finally came out. Because the truth doesn't hide forever. Not even behind a locked cabinet. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.